The conference finals begin tonight, and it's Superman versus X-Men. Will Thunder Wolves come down to superstars like SGA and Ant-Man, or will the X factors make all the difference? Plus, the dream of the 90s is alive in the East, but will Knicks Pacers live up to the rivalry's historic physicality? And the Sixers and Suns spark speculation on a deal for Kevin Durant. That's all today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free. We are available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets, and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. And I have two of the best with me, as always, from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior NBA writer for the Action Network. It's Matt Moore. Matt, conference finals start tonight. Wolves Thunder. Of the four teams remaining, who's most likely to have a Game 1 win that sets the agenda for the series? The type of win where you go, okay, this other team now has to figure out an answer for that.
Of the four remaining teams?
Yes.
Indiana Pacers. Pacers are going to take Game 1 versus the Knicks. It's going to be a shocker for the Knicks fans that were so excited and losing their minds and making the conference finals, and rightfully so. It's going to celebrate things, but the Pacers don't care. They are a punk rock troupe of absolute marauders, and they are going to waltz into MSG and spray paint Pacers for life all over the place.
We've got previews of both series coming up, and we also have from the Locked On Bulls podcast, Hayes. Hey, same question. Who's setting the agenda in Game 1?
I'm going to, for the nature of the conversation, I'm actually going to say Jalen Brunson and the New York Knicks set the tone in Game 1. I do believe it's going to have to come in that Pacers and Knicks series, but I say that Jalen Brunson sets a great tone there in Game 1.
We'll talk more about Knicks Pacers coming up, but let's go to the Thunder and the Wolves because they get started tonight. You can listen to a crossover episode of Locked On Thunder and Locked On Wolves after this show. But here's a taste of what Rylan and Ben think will be the narrative of this series.
Swept up into SGA and Anthony Edwards, and rightfully so. They're great players. Like, what are the Thunder going to be able to have their streaky shooters come through for a series against this cross match and Minnesota zone? Is Minnesota going to have their streaky shooters come through whenever the Thunder for 2 straight years now have been willing to give away corner threes? I think that Naz Reid is a guy that could easily join the list of Thunder killers. Every team has these guys that like just kill their team. I think that Naz Reid can have a huge series.
I'm going to go Jaden McDaniels because I think the Thunder are going to cheat off of him a little bit, and with the way that the Thunder, pack the paint and do allow some corner threes, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for McDaniels to either make the right choice and score a bucket or generate something for a teammate, or make the wrong choice or miss an open shot.
Okay, so both Rylan and Ben there think this is going to come down to the role players. Matt, what do you think? Is this going to be a Superman series or an X-Men series? Is it going to be all about SGA versus Ant and Randall, or is it going to be about which role players are hitting shots?
No. It's an X-Men series. It's absolutely an X-Men series. So, look, both these teams have the personnel to be able to choose what they want to do with these opposing star players. So if they want to, they can, the Thunder are good enough to just front the screen and be like, nope, we're not letting you screen. We're just staying in front of you. You're going to have to isolate versus us. And Ant, I honestly think this is going to be a hard series for him with the kind of defenders that they have. These are elite defenders. If Ant beats that goes a long way towards the Wolves getting there. Or they can also just be like, all right, we're going to actually cut down everybody else, and Ant can score as much as he wants. We're not going to actually throw the kitchen sink at him. If he gets going, that's fine. We just can't let everybody else go. And I think the Wolves are in the position on the other side. I think whoever can get their teammates involved, can you force the double? Can you score enough that they're like, we can't live with this. We got to bring help. And once that starts happening, both these teams are out of their comfort zone. They don't want to help. They want to stay out of rotation because they have good enough defenders to do so. If you get Julius Randle opportunities to be the difference maker, if you get Naz Reid the opportunity to be the difference maker, J-Dub, Chet, those guys I think are going to decide this series, Hayes, because both of these teams have too good both individual and schematic defenses to be like, this is going to be decided by superstar battle one-on-one.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely going to be an X-Men series. Like you also factor in coaching, like you said, the depth there. But I'll go a step further. I think this is going to be an Avengers series because there's definitely going to be several on your left moments over the course of the series where you have to have somebody that's going to need to show up and give some help down the stretches of these games. That's been Julius Randle a lot for the Minnesota Timberwolves over the course of this playoff series. I think that's going to continue in this one. We already know what the depth of the Thunder can do, and we know the crazy looks that they can throw defensively and everything else. And there's always one of those guys that is a defensive guy that steps up offensively each game. But the Minnesota Timberwolves, between Dante, between Julius Randle, between Rudy Gobert, whoever else, pick your person. They're going to have to show up and give tons of effort. And they may have to do it rotated as well each game.
Hayes, I think that's an awesome point. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to tell you that pot calling kettle and everything, it can't be an Avengers series. Luka's already been eliminated, so there's no fat Thor.
Oh, so needless, but that's why we love you.
I need to go to the gym. I'm owning it. I need to go to the gym.
Well, Chet already looks a little mutant-like, so I think you're right on the X-Men series. And but what's interesting is that if you look at these playoffs so far, you really haven't gotten an Ants or an SGA Superman series yet. So it would be probably wise to stick with X-Men, but it could suddenly turn around and it could be about the stars, which leads me to my next question. Hayes, when you zoom out and take a look at both of these series, in the West and the East, which team needs their star to star the most if they want to come out and get to the NBA Finals?
I think it's out of all four teams?
Yeah.
Or just... Okay, I think that it's the Knicks with Jalen Brunson. You need Jalen Brunson to be Superman if you're going to want to come out and these conference finals. Now, that doesn't mean the other players aren't going to have to step up and he's not going to need some help. But Jalen Brunson is going to have to go into that almost MVP caliber level of play that we've seen him do for stretches before. He's going to need that if this team is going to want to get to the NBA Finals. I get it that the Pacers and them are an evenly matched team. I think this is going to be the one series that if between these two, I'd pick to go 7 games if I had to. But you're going to need Jalen Brunson to put on his cape. He's going to have to be Superman in that series.
It's going to have to be Ant-Man. Ant-Man. He's going to have to absolutely be incredible in this series to me, because I'll tell you this right now. I think if the Wolves get to a point where they're even being effective on Shea, and Shea's had some up and down moments in these playoffs. He was great to finish that Nuggets series, but first 8 games or so, not really a great postseason so far for Shea, and the Thunder still won. I do think, though, they're going to need a star to star the most for the Thunder, and it's not going to be Shea. It's going to be J-Dub. I think J-Dub is about to have a breakout, explosive, put his name on the map series. Hayes, I think Jalen Williams is winning conference finals MVP. I think he is going to be so good in this series that he's going to outshine Shea, and he's going to be the guy that wins conference finals MVP when the Thunder advance.
That's a bold prediction. What do you think, Hayes?
That's a prediction. I mean, I can see it happening because J-Dub, he's a major player. He's going to be somebody that they're going to have to adjust to. So I can see it happening. But heck, we don't even know who the MVP yet is, Matt, which is crazy.
Yeah, what's taking so long?
Is this not the longest it's taken to name an MVP? Like, were they waiting till after the series was over to say who was going to be the MVP? Is that what's happening here?
Here's my theory. They got the bracket and realized that they had this whole thing of if they give it out during the conference finals and the guy loses, he gets saddled with David Robinson 95 forever. That's that moment. And like everyone loved David. The Admiral is one of the most beloved guys in the history of the league. They did not want to give us the petty, Hayes. They denied us the petty because they knew that whoever won was going to come out, be the guy that came out of the series. So they decided to extend it so they could set up this kind of situation. It's not what we wanted, but I think it's pretty smart to avoid that unfortunate kind of reality.
Speaking of the petty, Mike Malone is on the desk for the Western Conference Finals. Would he be if Denver had made the Western Conference Finals?
Yeah, he would have. And he would have been very complimentary and he would have been very gracious. Michael knows how to win a press conference 100%. He's going to be terrific on the desk in these Western Conference Finals.
All right, coming up on Locked On NBA, we turn our attention to the East. Knicks Pacers, a lot of history, particularly in the 90s, very physical series in the 90s. Will this series live up to that, or is it going to be something entirely new? Plus, Kevin Durant, the latest trade speculation is centering around the Philadelphia 76ers and their 3rd overall selection in this year's draft. More on that coming up on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Car Gurus. Shopping for a car should be exciting, not exhausting. But with confusing prices and hidden fees, the process can feel overwhelming. That's why I trust Car Gurus. They cut through the noise and help you find the best deals with confidence. Car Gurus has more new and used cars than any other major online marketplace in the U.S., with over 4 million listings. They verify dealers, analyze real prices, and give you the data you need to make smart, pressure-free decisions. Need a deal you can trust? Car Gurus lets you compare vehicles side by side with unbiased deal ratings. And my favorite feature is the price drop alerts so that you know exactly when the perfect car hits your budget. Plus, their detailed vehicle info gives you peace of mind before you ever set foot on the lot. It's no wonder that similar web data shows Car Gurus is the #1 most visited car shopping site. Buy or sell your next car today at cargurus.com. That's CARGURUS.com, cargurus.com. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Thunder Wolves set to go tonight. The Pacers and Knicks will have to wait a little bit longer for their highly anticipated matchup. Let's go to Gavin Shaw of Locked On Knicks and Tony East of Locked On Pacers, who are giddy that this historic playoff rivalry continues on the biggest stage and why the Pacers' evolution on the offensive end could be the deciding factor.
Tony, a series I think we both think is going to be even better than last year's 7-game slugfest.
Both teams are better, right? And last year's was obviously headlined by some non-basketball things on the Knicks side. This year, both healthy, both feeling better. Both of these teams, the last time they made the finals, guess who they beat? The team they're currently playing in the conference finals. For anyone older than like 25, this is like a perfect series.
These teams are putting up comebacks like we've never seen in NBA history and doing it multiple times. When I talked to you in the regular season, you told me that you weren't sure if this year's group had as high of a ceiling because the defense was better, the offense wasn't quite as good.
I wondered if their offense could get to last year's levels. And guess what? They have the best offensive rating in the playoffs of any team that's still playing. And so when they like really dial into an opponent and they can figure out how these coverages evolve throughout a series and they can problem solve, they're just so hard to guard for a 7-game series.
So, Matt, I mentioned that playoff series history, big rivalry. It's been defined by physicality, by nastiness, by comebacks, by huge shots. Does this series have a shot, now that both teams are healthy, as they were saying there, does this series have a shot at mimicking some of those 90s glory year series? And if it does get that physical, who stands to benefit most?
I mean, I don't think so, just because it's fitting that both Halliburton and Brunson have appeared on WWE TV, because like that's going to be like, this is the WWE version of the physicality of the 90s.
Fake physicality.
Right. Like that's like a little bit of this. But if it does go that direction, I like Indiana a lot more. New York is like a little fake tough, like just like a little bit fake tough. And that's okay. Like they're more of a finesse team. You've got Cat, you've got Brunson, like those guys. You've got now Wingstop, McHale, and OG, and especially Josh Hart. Those guys are dogs, like 100%. Miles McBride, dog. Those Mitch, dog. But you're led by two guys that really aren't kind of like really made by that. And I don't think that they're going to be very comfortable if the series gets hyper physical. There's going to be a lot of complaining, I think, from Brunson if it goes down that path. Also, let's just be very clear. The Indiana Pacers are just like, they're vicious. They attack you every single possession, and they have James Johnson, and the Knicks do not.
If this series gets physical, I think that's going to lean in the hands of the Indiana Pacers. Not to say that the Knicks can't get physical. It's a Tom Thibodeau coach team. They've been already better defensively than I expect them to be, so maybe they have another level of physicality to go to and toughness, because they do got some players that are tough on that team. But I think if it gets physical and gets anywhere close to matching the physicalness of those older series, then it's going to play in the hands of the Pacers easily. And maybe that's just me underestimating the Knicks some. But I doubt it's going to get to that level. This playoffs has overall been a lot more physical, but it's not going to match the physicality of the Pacers and Knicks when I was growing up. I just don't see that happening, but I would love to see it, though.
Joakim Noah ain't walking through that door as far as a Tibbs team. Also, read Blood in the Garden by Chris Herring, and you'll get an idea of exactly how physical those Knicks teams used to be.
All right, so we'll see how physical it gets. Maybe it turns into a bar fight. But if you don't want to be in a bar fight, the best thing to do sometimes is just run away really fast. And the Pacers have been great at that on both sides of the ball. Here's Tony East of Locked On Pacers with more on that.
The wear-down effect's been a big common word phrase playing against the Pacers in this playoff so far. They have the highest pickup point on defense of any team. we all know about their offensive pace. Like I can just watch them play and tell you they play faster. I talked about the passes this week. Like you have to move a lot on defense because the ball's moving a lot and they don't turn it over in that style, which is so hard to do. If every team could pass the ball a gazillion times and never turn it over, they would. Like everybody recognizes why it works. It's just hard. And then what you're talking about, like they're down 19 and they go on this run. Like those crush you if you're an opponent physically and mentally, because the Pacers score by whipping the ball around a million times. And then immediately you're being pressed. You're like, ugh, and then you guys don't score. And then the Pacers score again. And then you turn around and Andrew Nembhard's in your face again. And you're like, again, this guy's up here again. Like I'm 70 feet from the basket. And then you're looking up and calling for help. And like, yeah, that like physically that wears down. If the Knicks are setting that engagement, it's the Pacers be like, oh, we got to score against this set defense again. Like, oh, we got to try to stop this 18-second possession again. And it's so deflating to defend for that long and still have Jalen Brunson just like wiggle his way into a shot that only he's comfortable with. So the pace will be really important.
All right, how important will pace be to this series? Do you agree with him that it will be super important, Hayes? And can Jalen Brunson control the pace of this game enough to keep New York in this, or will they get swamped by the Pacers' attack?
I think Jalen Brunson, if you can't tell, I think very highly of Jalen Brunson. I think he can help the Knicks pace stay where it needs to be, but the Pacers just play with a different level of not only just pace but execution in that pace. A lot of teams can play fast, but how do you play fast and not sloppy, right? Like how much are you executing the game plan even when you push the pace? And that's what the Pacers are excellent at doing, and that's going to cause fits, I think, for this New York Knicks team defensively. While you have some solid perimeter defenders, if you can't catch up to them, there's going to be a problem with that one. So the Pacers are right to play pushing the pace in their favor and to play that. But I think the Knicks, again, because I'm expecting Jalen Brunson to have an MVP caliber series here, I think they'll be able to keep up.
I love this conversation because it allows us to talk in a little bit more nuance about what pace actually is. Now that I've called the Knicks fake tough and called Luka Fat Thor, I can actually have some nuance here. Look, do you know who actually has a higher percentage of possessions in transition and averages more transition possessions per game than the Pacers? The Knicks. The Knicks have actually spent more time in transition in these playoffs than the Pacers. The key here is that we use pace as a word for how fast you play, but the Pacers are not just running and getting out. It's not 7 seconds or less. It's about getting into your set and executing with 20 on the clock, and especially after makes. This Pacers team, nobody survives their tempo because you make a bucket, and while you're doing elaborate 3-point celebrations, they're already back and they're creating an extra pass to get a bucket, a shot attempt while you're uneven and unbalanced. I have never seen a team be this deliberate and intentional with how they approach every single possession. We're going to be ahead of your defense. You never get to set up. We're not walking the dog. We're not letting you get set up. We're at your throat every single possession. The Knicks are not equipped for this. It's a big reason why I think Indiana is going to win this series.
Can they keep it up through the finals? Can they keep up that kind of intent? Because the pace is on defense too, right? You just heard Tony East there say they pick up teams, further away from the basket than any other team. Can you keep that up through 8 more wins?
I think so. I did a whole thing on fan side about this, about the ages. Like if it's Pacers Thunder, guess what? That's 2 of the youngest teams that we had in the playoffs. And they've got the depth to be able to roll it out in kind of groups and the athleticism, I think, to counter it. And I will say this, early on in the season, the Nuggets got to win over the Thunder in Denver. And one of the things I really noticed in that game, and I noticed it throughout the season versus games against the Wolves and a few others, if you speed up OKC, they get a little uncomfortable. Denver couldn't do that because they're dinosaurs. The Pacers can. And so that would be a very interesting matchup, but they got to get through the Knicks first. I'm not counting the Knicks out. I might like the Pacers, but this Knicks team has enough firepower and defense to get this done if things go their way.
Hayes, can they keep up the pace, and can they also keep up the shooting, right? Because a big part of the execution of that offense has been guys like Nembhard and others hitting a lot of 3-point shots. If those don't go in early in this series, are the Pacers going to suddenly be in trouble?
Yeah, they definitely could be. I think, eventually that hot shooting, it eventually stops. Now, hopefully, if it stops, you're hoping it stops for a game or two, and then you're able to get back in gear on it. But if they go through a shooting slump in this series we're talking about 1, 2, 3 games, that could be enough of a window to give the New York Knicks more than the window cracked open to win this series. So the Pacers are going to have to hope to keep it up, and then they're going to have to hope to keep it up even further than that if they make it to the NBA Finals, because that's going to be another series where their pace and shooting is going to be hugely needed. So I think at some point the luck's going to run out. It just when and for how long is the biggest question there.
It was a weird start to the season for the Indiana Pacers. They were beating good teams and also losing to terrible teams, and now here they are. They look like a well-oiled machine. Have they peaked? Which of these four teams has peaked and which has the most room to grow in these conference finals heading into the finals? I'll ask Matt and Hayes that ahead. Plus, Kevin Durant in trade discussions. He will be in trade discussions all offseason long, and suddenly they're around the Philadelphia 76ers. Paul George involved in these rumors. We'll get to all of it on the other side. Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by our friends at Skims. If you've been on the hunt for men's underwear that actually fits right, feels great all day, and doesn't stretch out or ride up, Skims has you covered. You've probably heard the hype. I certainly have, and let me tell you, it's real. Skims Men's offers a full lineup of boxer briefs, classic briefs, cotton, or stretch options, all designed for comfort, style, and movement. Whether you're hitting the gym, traveling for work, or just hanging out at home, these are the pairs that move with you and stay in place. If you want something for working out, the stretch 5-inch boxer briefs gives you full mobility without that synthetic, overly athletic feel. I hate that. Prefer a classic look? The cotton 3-inch boxer briefs are soft, breathable, and built like the ones that you've always loved, just better. And if you're a briefs guy or curious to try them again, Skims nailed the sleek, secure fit that makes you forget that you're wearing anything at all without sacrificing the support that you need. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com/lockedonnba and Skims stores. Let them know we sent you after you place your order. Select podcast in the survey and select our show, Locked On NBA, in the drop-down menu that follows. Skims is the official underwear partner of the NBA, the WNBA, and USA Basketball. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every single day. Make sure you're checking out Locked On NBA Game Night. Tonight, they'll be recapping Thunder Wolves, and they'll be recapping every game until an NBA champion is crowned. One more question as we do our conference finals preview series here, and then we'll get to some trade machine stuff. Have we seen the peak versions of any of these teams in the conference finals? Which team has the most room to grow into what their ultimate finals form will become, Matt?
I think the Knicks. I'm going to be really honest with you. I don't think the Knicks have actually played that well. Like, they had a 111 offensive rating versus the Celtics. They were down 24 times in that series. But if you get past the Pacers and you kind of find who you are, they've also got so much capacity to improve this offense. Like, run more Brunson and Cat pick and roll like you did at the beginning of the season. Get more guys involved. Get away from just Jalen Brunson dribble, grift. Like, actually build an effective offense that gets everybody involved. There's potential here. This team's got a lot of talent. They've got a lot of mechanisms. There's stuff that they can add in even at this late stage in the postseason, but they got to do it. I think the Knicks have a lot of room to grow here. If they're able to look different, Hayes, then all my thoughts on the Knicks are going to be wrong, and they're going to the finals.
Yeah, I think the Knicks definitely have room to grow. They haven't really, like, I can't say that they've peaked, right? It's a team that looks like it's starting to catch its stride at the playoffs at the right time. And we've seen teams like that just keep building and building as the playoff series goes on, because they were disappointing over the regular season. Per the trade that you made and the first round picks that you sent out to build this team, I think it's safe to say that the Knicks disappointed a little bit in the regular season with the performance against the top teams in the league and all that. Now, they seem to be hitting the right pace and the right rhythm now. And that either means that they can burn out or they can keep taking it further, especially under Tom Thibodeau. So I agree with you. They have a lot of room to grow here. If any team's peak, though, I'd probably be a little bit concerned that it's the Minnesota Timberwolves, just because Julius Randle has been playing the best basketball of his career right now. So a little bit of worried if the Wolves have peaked. I hope not, because I want to see a great series against them and the Thunder. But those would be the two teams for one that may have peaked and one that still has a lot of room to grow.
Pacers Knicks is just going to be so fascinating because you have two teams that I think took advantage of contending teams that tightened up, and it led to enormous comebacks. And now you have these two teams facing off. And the real question is, like, which one of these teams is going to tighten up first?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of potential here for these teams to still get better, which I think is pretty exciting. It's also like there's a very strong argument to be had that the Knicks probably shouldn't be here based off of their overall performance versus the Celtics, but also the Pacers have shot the lights out. Like Hayes mentioned, like the Pacers have shot the lights out in these playoffs. I think the Wolves and Thunder have a much stronger case for like, yeah, they should be here. But with Minnesota, it's also been like they've kind of underperformed. I think they were trapped in that series with the Warriors, who were one of those teams designed to make you look bad. I kind of disagree with Hayes. Like, I think the Wolves are probably better going into these conference finals than what they've showed in the playoffs. And if I were to choose anybody that's probably, not as good as they've looked, it's probably the Pacers, even though I like them in the series.
All right, let's move on the Wolves early on. Sorry, my bad, Doug.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say Matt was one of the guys who was high on the Wolves early into this playoff run, so it doesn't surprise me that you think that they can play better. So I mean, we'll see. I hope so. I'm just a little worried that they haven't, just because of the Rando aspect of it. But otherwise, I like that team a lot.
Do you want to trust Tom Thibodeau or Julius Randle? Your choice.
Oh my God, that's a Sophie's choice if I've ever seen one.
All right, let's move on to the teams that are not in the conference finals, the teams that are starting their offseason early. The Locked On Suns podcast has been trying to figure out all the possible ways the Suns could trade Kevin Durant and restart their playoff dreams. One of their ideas seemed crazy at first until it popped up in a report on ESPN. Here's Brandon Clean with more.
Jeremy Woo of ESPN does a write-up for the Philly section of the latest mock draft up there, and says people expect Philly to poke around on deals like that. And he said Kevin Durant obviously would be one of the main people that would be in the mix there. Not as crazy as we thought, maybe, Ben. This is maybe not such a wild card.
No, I never thought it was crazy. I just thought it was a nuclear option for both sides. And that's, you're going to get a terrible contract back in Paul George. You might have to embrace the tank for a couple of seasons, but if you nail that draft pick, you might have another budding star to go along with Booker. No need to trade or lure someone else here. If you're trying to win a championship in the Joel Embiid era, a new 19-year-old kid, even if he's awesome, likely isn't going to do that this year. In another year of Embiid getting older, you might just want to turn that into Kevin Durant.
All right, what do you think about this, Hayes? The Sixers and the Suns, two of the most dysfunctional teams that we covered in this regular season, doing when you're talking about the number 3 overall pick and Kevin Durant, I would consider that a blockbuster deal. Does KD and Philly, alongside a relatively healthy Maxey and Embiid, turn them into paper contenders or actual contenders in the East?
I mean, it gets them a lot further. The way I view it is that if you looked at this 76ers team when they first got everybody together and you thought if they were going to be able to stay healthy, they could be a championship team, then adding KD to that in place of Paul George, you have to keep that same energy. So I wasn't somebody on paper when I said if this works, it can work really good. It could be ugly though. So I think KD adding Joel Embiid, you have to hope that both those guys are going to be healthy and stay healthy. But if they are, it could be worth it. Your window's it's not wide open. It's not going to be an extended window, but it gives you an opportunity in that Joel Embiid time frame to really try to make a go at it, and maybe your last-ditch effort, just giving up the number 3 overall pick. I mean, that could come back to be something that you regret down the road.
KD's been bothered by this criticism of the idea that he doesn't make teammates better. And I don't think it's necessarily his fault. It's a mechanism of how he plays. Like the way that KD plays, the great thing about him is you can put him literally anywhere and he's going to be good. There's no team in the NBA that you put KD on and he's not good, that he struggles, that he's not comfortable. He's always going to be awesome. He's always going to give you that production, but he doesn't lift up other teammates. You don't have anybody to do that in Philadelphia. I don't think Tyrese Maxey, not yet, is able to do that, especially if he's going to have to defer to KD and Embiid. You got KD at 37 on top of Joel's injury situation. Like how does this work? How does this possibly end up? You're trying to shoot the moon for 1 year where everything goes perfectly correct. And even then, I don't know if you've got guys that actually lift up and then make everybody better. You got to have somebody who makes everybody better. I don't think it makes sense for Philly. On the Suns side, does Devin Booker really want to just rebuild around a number 3 draft pick? Is that what he wants? Also Devin Booker and Ace Bailey? There's a lot of reasons that I think this is probably sketchy. Now, if the Suns want to go further and trade KD for the 3 and then move Devin Booker for one of the top picks in the draft, that is, I think, very interesting, whether it's number 2 to San Antonio or number 4 to Charlotte. I think both those ideas are really interesting.
Yeah, so it makes more sense within for the Suns. It makes more sense within the context of a full rebuild. But everything we've been hearing out of the Suns management, at least, has been that they still have eyes on continuing to compete in the playoffs. So we will see how that develops. Let us know what you think about that deal on YouTube, youtube.com/@LockedOnNBA, where you can get into the conversation in our comments section. There's also a lot of speculation around the future for 22-year-old Jonathan Kuminga and the Golden State Warriors. Kuminga is a restricted free agent this summer. If you're a rebuilding team like the Wizards, the Jazz, the Hornets, are you signing up, Matt, for a sign and trade with the Warriors for 4 years of Jonathan Kuminga at 25 or 30 per, just based on the last couple of playoff games?
With due respect for Jonathan Kuminga, and he's young and has a lot of room to grow. Please, God, no. Please, God, please, no. Look, a guy that Steve Kerr doesn't like, you probably do not want to invest significant resources in. Steve Kerr knows how to play winning basketball. He's built a system that's won 4 championships, and Kerr was literally like, I don't know how to get you on the court for this to work. He's a north-south, up-and-down player. If you're the Wizards, do you want to add him next to Jordan Poole? I like the Wizards a lot next year. I'll like him a lot less if that happens. Feels like a Kuzma replacement. If you're any of these, the Hornets, no, don't do that. No, that's not the way. You get a lot of opportunities here. Jazz, same kind of deal. I think the Jazz are the least likely because the Jazz are going to be like, hey, give us your contracts and draft picks. Like, they're going to probably have to rebuild for another season given where they landed in the lottery. So I'm not worried about that one, but please, I think that Kuminga can work out, but it's going to have to be a very specific fit. And none of these teams, I think, are in a position to do so, Hayes.
Yeah, I mean, the one that I could say is the Jazz, mainly because the Jazz, I could see them being the team of, Kuminga, go out, take 25 shots this whole season. It could land us the number 1 overall pick. Like, I could see that maybe being what they have there. And the Jazz, I would think that if they put them on that deal and Kuminga looks good for a season or 2 in their jersey because he's able to be the offense and get as many shots as he wants, they're not going to be against turning around and flipping him again, right? So I think the Jazz are the one team on this list that if I had to try to convince myself could be interested in taking it, maybe it would be the Jazz. But Kuminga is just such an interesting case because you look at the numbers, they look decent, and you could try to convince yourself that he's a player that just needs to change the scenery. But then you realize some of the things are bad. Playing in the team concept is bad. Defensively, he's been bad. So there's definitely going to be concern there. But because the Utah Jazz, I don't think have any plans on being good anytime soon. They're the ones that I would pick here.
What about a 3-way deal with the Heat, where the Heat send their young guys and maybe Tyler Hero somewhere else, and then the Warriors send Jonathan Kuminga to Miami? Because I like that a lot. I like Bam and Kuminga as a combo. In the Heat system, I think Kuminga makes a lot more sense, and he works a little bit more with their timeline. I actually think that that's pretty good.
I think the guys at Locked On Heat would love that a lot because I've just been looking down their episode list and it's just a constant stream of guy to Miami. I want to do a supercut of just all the players that they are currently speculating could move to South Beach. And by the way, did you pick up on that, DC? Be warned. Matt Moore will turn this bandwagon over right now and get off if you do a deal for Kuminga. You better watch out. Just a few seconds left. Really quickly, give me a prediction for Wolves Thunder tonight. Give me the winner and the top game score performer. Matt, we'll start with you.
Wolves win game 1. Naz Reid ends up with the highest game score as he puts up 21 and 8 in a surprisingly low scoring, unsurprisingly low scoring affair. Wolves steal game 1. History of teams coming off of game 7 in the conference finals, 2-7 straight up since 2003.
Hayes.
I'm going to go board here. I'm just going to go pretty straightforward. I think that the OKC Thunder win this game. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has a stat line of 28, 7, and 7 in this game.
Boring.
It would be surprising, though. I mean, again, relative to what we've seen out of both Shai and Ant so far. All right, if you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube. Thanks to Matt and Hayes for their expertise every day. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On NBA Game Night. We just predicted what will happen. They will tell you what happened every game, every night, until an NBA champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NBA Game Night on this feed on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Enjoy our beautiful game tonight. Be kind to each other, and we're going to see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On NBA.